Brilliant, fantastic. So the way that this will go is that it's about an hour long as a session. Feel free to keep your camera on, feel free to keep your camera off, whichever you prefer is absolutely fine. All I ask is that during the, when not speaking, just to kind of keep the mic on mute, just so that we kind of drown out any kind of residual or background noise. But do feel free to kind of pop questions in the chat as we go along, and there'll also be opportunities to kind of unmute and ask any questions as well. When I do these kind of things in person, it is effective when it's two ways, so please don't feel that it's just me kind of talking at you. As I say, if there's anything that you want clarity on, don't hesitate to ask. I'll also make sure that you get my email address at the end. Excuse me, you know, if you also have any questions that you want to ask me personally, as in like one-to-one, that's absolutely fine. I understand that sometimes you might not want to ask certain questions, you know, with regards to your business in more of a public sort of space. So don't hesitate to either send me a direct message on the chat, or alternatively, reach out to me on LinkedIn afterwards. Or indeed drop me an email. I always say as well, if there's anything that you ask me that I don't have the answer to up front, or I want to go away and have a little think about, I'll always endeavour to follow up with that, or indeed put you in contact with a member of the team that would be better suited to your question. So without further ado, let's crack on. So let's take a little look at local SEO and how to increase visibility in your region. For those of you who haven't met me, my name's Dan Jenkins. I'm a strategic marketing manager at Wagada, Wagada Digital. We are a results-driven and results-focused digital marketing agency. We have locations across St Albans and Cheltenham. So we're just celebrating our 10th year as an agency. Hailing from St Albans, we launched our West of England office earlier this year, and we work with clients across the UK and overseas as well. And indeed, it's not all about me. I'm part of a fantastic kind of growing team of specialists that cover everything from paid social to organic social media, email marketing. We're HubSpot partners as well. We have that kind of core specialism in search engine optimization and technical SEO and strategy. Those are our sort of core areas, but we are able to strategize and implement kind of full 360-degree digital marketing services and tactics across our team. So why local SEO? Well, the way that I want us to approach this is to break it down into steps. And local SEO is its own kind of beast, really. So when we say SEO, search engine optimization, you know, in layman's terms, we literally mean getting ourselves fit and healthy for search. So getting our website seen, getting people to our website, and then getting people converting. But the truth is that we need to approach local SEO, and by local SEO, I mean town and region, no bigger than county, but really we're looking at town and kind of immediate sort of region and locality. And we need to approach that from a digital marketing perspective very, very differently to how we approach SEO if you're looking at national, for example, a national e-commerce or an international website. So first and foremost, we need to kind of understand that landscape and understand you know, why local SEO? Well, first and foremost, it can be easier to rank. You know, you're not trying to compete against national brands, national websites on a national scale. So you're not necessarily going, right, I want my Cheltenham-based company to be seen in Glasgow. You know, that's not how you're approaching it. You can better meet the needs of a local audience. So your content, your website content, and the value that it brings at all times, you really want to be thinking about if you can develop that in such a way that's going to meet the needs of the audience more closely within your locality. You don't have to think too big in that sense. Local phrases tend to have a higher purchase intent. Now that's very, very true. So for example, if somebody was searching, I reference it later on, yoga, you know, that can be very informational driven. What's that? It's going to show you videos. It's going to show you yoga positions and moves. But if you type in, you know, yoga Banbury, yoga Welwyn Garden City, yoga Hatfield, you've got that intent of somebody that is very much in the marketplace and is keen to engage and to purchase, and we'll come on to that a little bit more in a moment. The truth as well is that we're also in a time when people like to buy local. Like, that is very much a mentality and a movement that's been, I think, building over the last 5 or 10 years, is that kind of push towards investing in local and to choosing a local organization, a local company over, you know, the big national companies of this world or the Amazons of this world. And because there are two algorithms, an algorithm, you know, again, in layman's terms, is simply how Google decides where websites rank, you know, the bits of analysis that it does to understand where websites rank on a search engine. If Google believes that the search is for a local type business or service, you will have a better chance of those local companies, those websites ranking. That's to do with Google's understanding of what the person is looking for based on the keywords. So then you can rank better than even a national brand if they believe that the purchase intent, what that person is actually looking for, is more a, you know, yeah, is a local search. Dan's got a great question. Are there stats of local versus national SEO in terms of effectiveness? Yes. I'll come, do you know what? I'll come back on that one, because what's very interesting is that I've worked with brands whereby if you don't get the optimization quite right, you could find yourself ranking for some keywords or some informational keywords across the country, and you could be pulling in traffic from the north of England or, you know, the west of England, because you're ranking for perhaps a blog article that's more informational driven, or the keywords just aren't quite right, the landing pages aren't quite optimized right. And then it's looking purely at the keyword and not some other factors for local SEO. Then it becomes not as effective for the brand, because what they actually want to do is to be seen locally. So the truth is that you also then want to look at which it is that you want to target, whether you really want to target local or if you want to target national. Because if you want to target local, that's where you want to drive your SEO, your search engine optimization, so that you can maximize visibility and traffic in that area. And then you want to invest elsewhere. So you want to spend money on perhaps some Google ads or some social media advertising, so that you can be seen across other parts of the country. On the flip side to that, if you don't have to be local, if you don't feel the need to be a local business, and you hit the right kind of keywords and the right kind of visibility, then you can be far more effective with a national approach, because you're going to be seen by that wider audience, larger volume of searches. So it's a tricky one, but it's about getting the balance right, and there's no sort of hard and fast rule on that. But I'll have a little think about statistics as well in terms of that, sort of evidencing that. So how to boost your rankings in local SEO? Well, these are the key areas that we need to be thinking about. And we're going to be touching upon these at the different elements as I kind of go through the steps. But Google My Business is key. That's that local pack, that sort of, you know, your new homepage, as I like to call it, which is the Google My Business listing that you see on a Google landing page. Yes, as I've touched upon, you want to be optimizing for kind of local search terms, the right kind of language, the right kind of phraseology. Reviews are key. Reviews across your Google My Business profile, and if appropriate, on websites such as Trustpilot. Reviews are now a major ranking signal as well. So they're not just about, is my business a 5-star business? It's, is Google seeing that my business is generating these 5-star reviews, because that is a positive ranking signal, and it can have a good effect on the website's ranking. Citations are very important in local SEO, but they're a long-term play. Those are all the places that your website or your company address is kind of referenced. So do think about those. Business listings and things are quite key, but not so much the paid for listings, those free opportunities, those directories. They're actually quite important for local SEO. And then also, again, I'll be going into it in more depth, but kind of local PR and link building. Those opportunities to have those other websites, specifically perhaps regional and kind of local, that can link back and can reference your business, and kind of link through to your website. So understanding the landscape, you know, it's really important to acknowledge that 95% of users never scroll past the first page of search results. And it's not surprising, really. You know, I mean, what this should make us think, though, is to not be disheartened about those times that we're on page 2. As an agency, we see those as the great opportunities. That's the low-hanging fruit and the quick wins. So when we're working with a business, if they come to us and they've got a large number of keywords on page 2, that's not a really negative thing. But the truth is, if we can get those keywords onto page 1, that can make a dramatic difference. So even if you get to bottom of page 1, that is then that big leap up. It's that big step from being on page 2. And from there, you can start targeting those top spots and being as visible as possible. But it's kind of no surprise that people don't scroll too far, because this landscape is changing in terms of search. I mean, it's all about monetization. Okay, so for example, you know, if I type in there chocolates by post, you've got barely anything above the fold. For those that aren't familiar with that phrase, think of it as an old broadsheet newspaper. It's folded down the middle. What you look at is above the fold. When you turn it over, that's below the fold. Think of it the same on a Google search. Everything above the fold there, that's the initial kind of screen. I would suggest 80% of that screen is advertising driven. Yeah, we've got Google Ad PPC showing the top 3 results there. And then we've got the whole grid of kind of shopping ads on the right-hand side. The only brand that we're really seeing is Thornton's, obviously a major player. And then it just touches upon the chocolatetradingcompany.com and their gifts page, which is then ranking in position 2 for that search. Likewise, you know, Google is working really, really hard to keep content on Google. I did this search this week. I literally just pumped in FA Cup because I knew the FA Cup was happening. Sadly, St Albans, I know, got knocked out 4-0 against Boreham Wood in the second round. But obviously, this is all happening at the moment. And, you know, whereas 15 years ago, there were a lot of websites, or even 10 years ago, that would have been getting a lot of traffic, even Wikipedia getting a lot of traffic for a search like this. I can pump in FA Cup and, you know, above the fold, I've got all the latest results. There you are, just rubbing it in. We can see that Boreham Wood did a job on St Albans 4-0. And then on the right-hand side, we've got that full description, the current champions, you know, the most successful clubs. That's all being pulled in. And then as I scroll, I've got all the top stories. I don't even have to click through to them because I know all the major headlines, a ton of info from Twitter. And this is such a visual search results page. But it's only on the 3rd scroll that you even start to get those organic listings. And just finally, to show that in a mobile search and how it can be very much the same, is that, you know, you type in digital marketing agency here as an example, and you're going to get bombarded with ads. So ad, this is 3 scrolls, by the way. I've just put them one next to the other. You've got 4 ads. So you're halfway down the 2nd scroll before you actually get to any listings. Then Google shows a local pack, okay, because it knows that a degree of what you're searching for, you might be wanting to look for a more local brand. So then it will show you a local pack with Google My Business listings. So why Google My Business is so important is because the organic listings aren't coming until nearly halfway down the 3rd scroll, the 3rd page of that scroll. And it's amazing how important it is to be seen in that local pack. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. So what does this mean? Well, it's a new era of search. Brands are trying to find these ways of kind of targeting position 0, which is being visible above the standard organic, you know, positions of 1 to 10 or whatever. As I touched upon, you want to dominate your own locality through SEO. So you want to think hyper local and then spend budget on targeting some other regions. Ultimately, your success on Google's search engine results pages needs to be strategic and well thought out. And you might want to find the right balance, okay, between SEO, PPC, social media, and advertising. But obviously, SEO is where, if you get it right, you can get results without needing the same level of advertising spend. Now, the truth is, some of this stuff, you know, we think it should be easy, and it's not. You know, people think that you should be able to just do this with your eyes closed, and the truth is that it's not. It's a long-term process to get it right. But if you approach it from the right angle, you will get it right. So, what is search engine optimization? You need to start thinking of it as these 3 things: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Okay, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's a Google thing. It's EAT, EAT, to easily remember it, right? But why this is so important is that you need to slightly come away from the thought of keyword, keyword, keyword. It's not all about keyword targeting and keyword stuffing. So if you are a local burger restaurant in Bishop's Cleeve, you're not going to optimize for come and visit our fantastic local burger restaurants in Bishop's Cleeve. Our Bishop's Cleeve burgers are the best burgers in the county. Here at Bishop's Cleeve, we believe that our local restaurant does the fine, you know, you're not going to keyword, 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 because Google sees through all of that. And you need to build out content focusing on all these signals. So the expertise might be, you know, are you writing that authoritative, I realize I've crossed over into the next one then. But they do link. It's, you know, are we doing authoritative blog content? Do our service landing pages show that we are skilled? Do we have those credentials, those qualifications? Do we have that about page that kind of talks about, you know, who we are as a business, our story, our background, you know? And again, this all feeds into the trust signals. Do we have those reviews? Do we have those reviews showing on our websites that we can see that we've got 5 stars on Google? Again, with trustworthiness, is all our address information exactly the same across all our online presence? That is so important. Is our name, address, and postcode and telephone number, is that the same on our website's contact page, our Google My Business contact page, our Yell listing, our Facebook page? Because it's amazing how often, as a business develops, you lose the consistency. Yeah, some might even be completely out of date, or you might just lose that little bit of consistency, so that in one you've got the street above the building name and the others the other way around, or in one you've only got the first part of the postcode, in others you've got the whole postcode. That is all playing into the trust aspect of local SEO. And it sounds very, very holistic, but if you approach it and make some of these changes I'm going to be talking through, it can have a massive positive effect. Because Google constantly updates. Yeah, so I've touched upon an algorithm. This is just a graph. This is an example of what you might get from a tool that we use called SEMRush, whereby you might look at visibility for keywords. And between the 11th of March and the 23rd of September, you could do a number of tactics that could be leading to that increase in visibility. Or sometimes those increases in visibility can be explained by Google algorithm updates, or decreases can be explained by Google algorithm updates, where they slightly change what they're looking for. And in recent times, that focus is becoming less and less on keywords and more on all these other aspects that play into how good your brand is kind of online, and how it appears in multiple places, not just your website. One thing I will say at this point as well is that all Google search results are personalized. What that means is everybody can see it slightly differently. It's not a massive shift, but you might Google your brand and go, well, we're in position 4 for XYZ. The truth is, to somebody else, you might be in position 3, or you might be in position 2. And it's because Google sometimes just tweaks it based on your past history, whether or not you've been visiting that website. Unless you're doing it in incognito mode, it has that little bit more information about your search habit. So don't always trust what you see. And there are tools whereby you can get a more objective view of how visible you are. I'll make sure you get this deck sent across, because obviously it'll have the links and things in there as well. But take a look at these 3 tools. You can get access to these for free. I touch upon SEMRush a little bit later on. That's actually a very, very good one, because it's a very, very expensive tool, but you can get a free version that would allow you to track something like 7 keywords and get a basic top-level website information. So for if you're a local SEO, or you've got a smaller website or a handful of keywords that you'd really like to monitor, again, that tool could be really, really good. Yeah, and as far as rankings go, Dan's asking which are what are the most effective ones to use. Yeah, so I will go on to that in a bit more detail actually when we look at keywords in this next section. So this would be more to better understand your visibility, but I'll show you some great tools that you can access, paid and free, to be able to better understand that the keyword, the actual keyword side of things. So whilst I've said that keywords are not everything, like in any good project, you've got to start with the foundations. Yeah, if you build a house, it's not all about the foundations. It's about the bricks, it's about the labouring, it's about the cement, it's about the roofer, it's about the scaffer, it's about all that stuff. But obviously you want to get the foundations right. So you do want to think about keywords. It's just not the be all and end all. So here's what I want us to think about as we navigate through this section. 3 different types of keywords: informational, transactional, and navigational. It's actually very, very simple. Information are those searches that you're looking to find out more: the hows, the whys, the whats, the where. You know, you might not yet be in a position to buy. The transactional are the ones where somebody is ready to purchase. Yeah, something for sale near me. And then the navigational is when people are navigating from one to another. So they might include branded search. People might have then heard of a company from their informational search, and they might search brand. You know, they might decide they want to go with a digital marketing agency. They might then search Wagada Digital and kind of navigate through. But the ones that I really want us to think about, because I'm conscious of time, is the kind of the informational and the transactional. Okay, if we just simplify it down to that, the difference between somebody looking for information and somebody who's looking to purchase, because we want to match the content to the type of search query. So we're not going to litter our keywords across our website. We're going to match the content to the type of search query. So some examples of informational searches: how do you clean red wine off the sofa? Charity fundraising ideas. How to make jacket potatoes. How do you cook a boiled egg in the microwave? Will avocado go brown in a sandwich? Now, the interesting thing about this, though, is that it will feed in to your business, okay? The period of time that it takes to make a decision from an informational search to a transactional search will vary based on a number of factors: the level of investment, the cost of your product or service, and the lead time, and all these other things. For example, let's say I rent, but let's say I rent, and then I make a decision. It might take me a while to decide that actually it's now going to be more financially viable for me to buy a house. And I might be doing a lot of informational searches surrounding purchase versus rental, mortgage rates, leasehold, freehold. I could be doing all that search stuff before I start looking for 4-bedroom houses near me or whatever. On the flip side, how do you clean red wine off the sofa? Let's say you're having a glass of red wine on a Friday night and you knock it and it goes all over the arm of the sofa. You've got a massive stain. You're in an informational search phase. First of all, you panic. What do I do? Then you start searching, how do I clean red wine off the sofa? Will red wine stain permanently? You know, blah, blah, blah. Once you've then done that, within the next 30 minutes, you might be doing your transactional searches. You might be searching a product that you've just read about to then buy it, and it could be in your basket and delivered by the next day on Amazon or something, okay? But that's an example of how, or on the flip side, you could be spending a slightly longer time, and the next day you're looking at sofas and you're looking for new sofas near me. So you get the idea. But what we want to do is service our customers at these different stages. So this is where we want to think blogs. Blogs, right? What are people searching for? Blogs, insights, white papers, guides, all that lovely stuff is feeding users into our funnel. So they're most used for blogs. They answer the questions that people are asking. They're great for brand building. Yes, they can bring in extra traffic. I work with my wife on her website. She's a sports therapist. She had a fantastic piece of content because it was all about sports and the impact of anxiety on sports performance. Now, her website is a local SEO website. It's servicing the locality. However, she generates a huge amount of traffic from the UK and America for this piece of content. She then, as a result of it, gets a lot of backlinks as well. I've even been looking, people are backlinking to it from reference websites because they've been writing dissertations and reports and they're utilizing that content. It's massively valuable because it sends all the right signals to Google. So that blog is then bringing in traffic. I work with another client, Hepburn Delaney, a law firm, and their blog has huge success, and especially during COVID, it brought in an enormous amount of traffic. I'll touch upon that in a moment, but the point is it then sends positive signals, even if some of those that traffic is not going to convert on a local level. It can engage your audience. it's that trust and authority stuff we're talking about. It's the credibility and the knowledge, because Google expects that content to be comprehensive and informative. This is a fantastic tool. I always recommend this tool. So Dan, this would be a great one to look at. This is called Answer the Public. If you just literally pump Answer the Public, excuse me, into Google, you'll get this website. You only get 2 free searches a day, but it's great because just on 2 a day, you can get an enormous amount of insight. You put a keyword in there. So it could be a keyword focused on your product or service. And then you hit search, and it gives you all these lovely search-based kind of question-based searches. So all the ises, the fors, the cans, the nears, the withs, and there's other sections where you can see the hows and the how-tos and all of that sort of stuff. And the point is, it gives you this lovely visual report, but you can also hit a button. Yes, it's free. There's a paid version, but if you get 2 free searches a day, you don't even have to create an account. So if you literally go on it, pump a keyword in, you can do that twice from your IP address, and then it refreshes. I think it's every day. But it gives you those long tail stuff. This example doesn't have the hows, but with the keyword avocado, it might give you things like how long will avocado last in the fridge or whatever. But it gives you those ideas to be able to create your blog content. Also to create sort of subheadings. So if it gives you things like phraseology that you think could be really effective for what your customers are searching for when they're around that kind of transactional stage, you could have it as a subheading on those landing pages. So for example, I mean, if I just literally look at this, right? I mean, this is a pretty crude example, but you'll get the idea, right? Avocado for sale. You know, that we could decide that's what our page is primarily optimized for. If we've got a landing page where we're selling avocados, it might be avocado for sale Hatfield, okay? You might then have subheadings where it's got like, you know, avocado for weaning. You could get that information on there about packs that you do that's purely for babies and so on and so forth. So you can decide what then language you want to use as kind of your subheadings, because it's that more question-based or informational content. On the flip side, those transactional searches are, as I've kind of mentioned, really, those, you know, iPhone 8 for sale, lawyer near me, yoga classes Hatfield. Those are those searches where people are now in the market to buy. But you need to clearly identify these, because sometimes a common mistake with a local SEO website is that we have kind of landing pages for our product or service, but it's too fluffy, it's too broad, and it's too informational driven. You really want to focus in the content on that to meet the need of the people who want to convert. So it's used to bring traffic specifically to those product and service pages. Yes, it needs to answer the questions that people are asking, but more with kind of FAQs or being able to link through to an FAQs page if that's appropriate, or make it comprehensive. Make it really easy for the person to take the next step, for them to convert, you know, for them to actually pick up the phone. If your conversion is that you need them to call you, make that really obvious, quite high up on that page, where they can fill in a contact form or pick up the phone or get in touch with you or whatever that might be, because we don't want people landing on informational pages when we really want them to convert, and we want them to take a transaction. Just to tie this together, I appreciate I'm going through a lot, but it's because I want to give you as many little kind of snippets and tips as I can. I don't want to labor any one thing too much, because you'll all take different little elements away from this. But something to really consider as well is when we're looking at keywords, there's almost that sweet spot, and it's not a hard and fast rule. It's not binary, right? You can't get it right and wrong. 20 SEOs could do keyword research and mapping, and they might come up with a slightly different sort of context of what keywords we're going to target and how we're going to map it out. But you want to find that balance between those keywords that are perhaps very, very short and those keywords that are very, very long. Okay, so I've used this as an example before. Let's say I was a local bookshop I'm not going to necessarily expect to rank for books, right? If somebody types books into Google, they're going to get Wikipedia, they're going to get informational driven stuff, they're going to get the history of literature in the UK, they might get Amazon book listings, right? I'm just not going to rank. On the flip side, if I sell non-fiction books, and within that I sell historical fiction books, I might not necessarily have a dedicated landing page, which is, you know, non-fiction historical fiction books written by UK authors. You know, people, that's too long tail. We want to find that sweet spot in the middle where we've got more chance to rank, but it's not so broad that we're not going to get seen, and it's not so focused that nobody's really searching for it. So we might have a landing page which is non-fiction books, Welwyn Garden City, if I sell non-fiction books in Welwyn Garden City. And that's the way to think about it in terms of your keyword targeting, is about trying to find that sweet spot in the middle. So just to now see that in practice, I mentioned about how those local search phrases have a higher purchase intent. This is it visibly, right? So if you type in yoga, again, that's that. You've got a guide to yoga from the NHS. You've got a load of explanatory videos. You've got these kind of commonly asked questions, which again, take inspiration from this stuff for your blog. Genuinely, like Google can give you a wealth of information. Pump in that top of the funnel keyword for your product or service and get a feel for what Google is kind of favoring or prompting back, so that if you were a local yoga class provider, you might do an article or a whole piece of content of what does yoga do to your body. You know, that could be your blog content, because again, this is that top of the funnel informational stuff. You know, then if we look on the flip side, a search in exactly the same place in Hatfield brings you yoga, it's exactly the same place. We've instantly got a completely different search engine results page. We've got yoga in Welwyn and Hatfield class details, you know, well optimized landing page there for Carol Stevens yoga, gentle hatha yoga classes near Welwyn Garden City and in Hatfield, suitable for all, including beginners. Okay, and that page that she'll have on her website, those classes page, will then be dedicated to that kind of local local search. And you can see how Google sees the intent of it very, very differently. So to optimize for that local search, you really want to get those keywords to include a location. So I'll show you in a moment where to put that, but you want to put it in like the page title and the H1. So it would be XYZ and then name of, you know, whatever the product or the focus keyword is and the location. So dance classes, St Albans, for example. You want to optimize, you know, you might have location landing pages. You want to optimize your content for that location. And if you're doing case studies, you know, they're a great example. Pop that information about the location and everything within the case studies as well. And from a blog perspective, something that I haven't mentioned, but that is very, very effective for local SEO is local focused blogs. So not just blogs that are relating to your product or your service, but blogs that give value to your community genuinely. So top 10 guides, and you can bring it back to the product or service that you offer. So let's say you are let's say you're a bookshop in a town. Let's say you're a bookshop in it's amazing how, like, you know, when it comes to it, you then can't even think of the name of a town in the UK. Let's say you're a bookshop in Newport in Southeast Wales, right? You might do a blog, which is kind of the top 10 things to do in and around Newport. And you might have one of them, come and chill out and have a coffee and have a read in our bookshop. But that might be one of 10. The other 10 might be to go and visit the Dragons Rugby, to go and look at the monument, just that's, you know, XYZ, whatever. But do think about local blog content, you know, where you can align it to your product or service, but it's focused more on the locality. It can rank, but it sends all the right signals. It's a holistic thing, and it sends all the right signals to Google that you are a local business and that is where you are based. When you're thinking about these, here are a few more tools for some of those more transactional based keywords. Take a look at Google Ads Keyword Planner because it's free. And all you need to do is have a Google Ad account. So you can set up a Google Ad account for free, pop your bank details in, not spend a penny, like draft up a campaign or something, and then you can get access to Google Ads Keyword Planner. It's not the best, but consider, because it's a little bit more tailored towards paid search, so it gives you quite broad average monthly search volumes. So for example, you type in chocolate biscuits, it's telling you that it's anywhere between 1,000 and 10,000 average monthly searches. But what is useful, obviously, it gives you other keywords and kind of keyword inspiration and things as well. But because it's more focused towards bidding and like PPC, it doesn't give you that granular detail in terms of in terms of kind of search volumes. One tool that I mentioned earlier is SEMRush. Now that's very, very effective. You can set up a free account on there. What you can then do is like pop your website URL in, and it can give you what you're currently ranking for. And on the free version, it will only give you a certain number. On the paid version, you can get like every single keyword that your website's currently ranking for. But on the free version, it gives you kind of like a sound bite, like the top whatever. You can also get a free 7-day trial of the paid version, so it might be worth just setting up a free account, having a play, and then when you get used to it, get yourself a 7-day trial of the fully paid version, and then get some access to some data, you know, and it's just going to help you on that kind of journey. And another quite useful keyword tool is Ubersuggest. This is free. This is from a chap called Neil Patel, who is a very well thought of marketer, and in particular kind of digital marketer. But again, you can pop a keyword in there, and it gives you perhaps a slightly more focused volume, and then all those wonderful associated keywords and things as well. And I believe there's a paid, but you can get access again for free. And as I mentioned earlier, do not underestimate the value in just literally typing in keywords into Google search, right? Genuinely, when you're looking at a blank screen, or you're not quite sure, or you want that next piece of blog inspiration, because as I mentioned, yes, I'm talking about keywords, but they're not the focus. The focus is a more holistic approach in terms of your content and providing value for your target market. So double glazing, if you're a local double glazing supplier, you pump in there double glazing, how, I mean, look, double glazing, how it works, how much does it cost, how long does it last, how to fit it. You could do a great guide on how to fit double glazing, you know, our 10-step guide on how to fit double glazing. If you're a glass supplier, for example. So you get the idea, and you know, and that's not coming from any expensive tool. That's just approaching it from a specific marketing perspective to get that solid inspiration for that content plan. Again, it's just, this is more just to reference how it can really work in practice. This was a local SEO kind of client. The focus here, we ran it across SEO, PR, and PPC. But a big push across kind of reviews, ratings, Trustpilot, Google My Business, you know, neatening up those kind of keyword searches, but some excellent kind of PR and backlinking led to an enormous amount of growth for this particular specialist eye surgeon. So that was an example. Healthcare, you know, it's an interesting one that, from a local SEO perspective, we work with a lot of healthcare clients, and really that authority and trust is absolutely pivotal and key across that healthcare sector, especially, you know, if you work in private healthcare, for example. So mapping that out and having a think about how we're going to apply that across your website. You don't want to just, again, you're not keyword stuffing. You want to keep a slightly more focused mind in terms of allocating one keyword grouping per page, and create landing pages if a suitable page doesn't exist. So you need to think, again, more holistically, so that each page on your website has a theme, okay? So for example, if you're a private eye surgeon that specializes in cataract surgery, you're not going to litter all your service pages with language surrounding cataracts. You're going to have a focused service landing page for cataract surgery, and you're going to talk about it and provide value and make it easy for your customer to convert on that page if it's optimized for something like cataract surgery, Welwyn Garden City, for example. Okay. And then where you're going to put that is in the URL. So you want the keyword in the URL. So if it's a blog, you might have that phrase in the URL to make it really clear to Google what it is that you're talking about. And you're going to pop it in the page title as well. That's what's called the meta title. So if you've got WordPress, or you've got something called Yoast, which is a very good thing to install into a WordPress website. If you don't yet have it, I recommend you check it out. Yoast, that's Y-O-A-S-T. Makes it very easy for you to update your page title, which is the meta title, that one that you see on the Google search result page. And that's where, for best practice, you just want to make it really clear what that primary sort of keyword focus is. So again, you know, cataract surgery, Welwyn Garden City, pipeline, you know, Mr. Jones, eye surgeon. The pipeline is the vertical bit, or you can have a hyphen and you pop the brand in. And then on the content, pop it in your image file name. You know, if it's then cataract surgery location, call the image that. Don't let the image be DSLR 76520 or, you know, optimized image for website. Just call it what it is. It's just sending all these right signals to Google. And then, you know, when you're considering your body text, this is where I cannot stress enough. The main copy, do not keyword it. Just talk around the theme. Yeah, so if it's cataract surgery, you're going to be talking a lot about eye health, improving eye health, you know, conducting the operation, using all that language surrounding what it is that you're doing and loosely referencing that keyword. So think about synonyms and semantics and all that lovely stuff, and not just the old school approach of keyword. Just consider everything we talked about in terms of authority and trust and so on. So we've kind of touched upon this, but as you're mapping it out, you want to match that user's intent. Focus around the phrases, not focus too much on the individual keyword. Just look to be comprehensive and informative. And images, white space, and bullet points can really help to break up that content. So often people will say, oh, but you know, I don't want to write 500 or 1,000 words because it's boring. And it's like, well, it's not if you deliver it in the right way. And interestingly, we're big believers in chunky content. So there was a report done that suggested that the average Google first page result actually contains 1,890 words. Now, the minimum that you want to be aiming for is 500 words, really. The absolute minimum is 300, right? But really, you want to be looking at 500 for a decent chance to rank. Roughly speaking, on an average side font, it's about one side of A4, okay? But if you break it up with bullet points, with facts, with subheadings, you can do that very naturally and in a way that's going to really engage with your target audience. The other thing to consider is that you want to be updating your website. So, you know, don't just do those service and transactional pages and 5 blog articles and leave it there. Try to discipline yourself to be able to take a more structured approach to kind of content writing and target doing a certain number of blogs so that you can be drip feeding those guides, those information, those downloads, whatever that might be on a regular basis. And I sort of touched upon this earlier, but just to really prove how that works in practice, we'd worked with Hepburn Delaney for a long time, but we needed to adapt more in the pandemic. We saw the impacts initially, so we took a very holistic, content-driven and blog-driven approach. We saw there was lots of search surrounding, you know, cohabiting and how couples and families, you know, going through separation actually and divorce, and you can imagine that with lockdown, all the impact of that. So we took a real concerted effort in terms of our content marketing, and it was highly effective. We were bringing people into the funnel through blog content, through all that wonderful information and support and guides that was very, very effective to then drive that through to more transactional and service driven landing pages. So we took, they had a huge surge in kind of traffic and blog engagement and so on and so forth. But it just shows how it can be highly effective for a local SEO client. So we've talked a lot about your website. We've talked about your website content. But if there's one thing that we need to kind of go away and do, it's to really look at bringing our Google My Business listing up to scratch, as I kind of have touched upon it being, you know, your company's new homepage. If you don't have a Google My Business listing, then you can go ahead and register it through the link. But you know, the thing is that often people do the Google My Business registration, they get their business kind of registered, they get a postcard through the post, and then they make sure it's got the right name, and they just kind of leave it there. And there's so much that you need to be doing on your Google My Business listing. You can add images, you know, update those regularly with the team, you know, products, services, so on and so forth. You can post now on Google My Business, but really that wants to be more events, news, and sort of special offers, that kind of drive, rather than perhaps your blog or some of your more social media type posts. As I've said many times, you really want to focus on developing reviews. So send people, pop it in your email footer, those links for them to go in and develop and write reviews. Check category. So you can see in this example, internet marketing service in St Albans, internet marketing service in Cheltenham. You know, there's a number of select categories, and you want to choose the most appropriate one for your business, because again, it does help with visibility. You can add products and services now as well. So you can see that example. It's just slightly cut off, actually, the way that I've done the visual there. But we've got products. The reason they're listed there as products and not services is because actually the way that Google My Business lists services is a bit hidden and not very visual. So it's a bit of a workaround, but list them as products when you're looking at your Google My Business in the back end, and they can be far more visual, and these all link through to the website then, and you can put cost brackets and all sorts on those. But again, it's just getting that listing up to scratch, because you can generate more engagement and more traffic. Address consistency, that is key for local SEO. Is my address the same across all these listings? Are our opening hours up to date? Reviews, 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 I've said it again. And populate Q&As. You know, people can be asking questions. Make sure on your Google My Business listing, keep an eye on that to make sure that you're answering those questions in a timely manner as well. Also, do make sure that you respond to all Google My Business reviews. That's actually very, very important. And the speed of response, you want to try and respond quite quickly, because it all links up to ranking signals, genuinely. That level of activity. So if somebody leaves you a 1-star review, you get on there and decide what that response is. Likewise, if somebody leaves you a 5-star review, jump on and thank them very quickly. So just to really push this aspect, the stars of reviews stand out. They're visual. Yes, it's subliminal messaging. They can increase your click-through rates. Google can verify those reviews, but for me, actually, from an SEO perspective, it's that ranking signal as well that's key. You can make them more effective as well by asking people or encouraging them to leave a review in such a way where they actually get some keywords in there. So especially if you know somebody that's had a great service, ask if they can talk about certain elements of your business, because the keyword, if people are then searching for the keywords, if those keywords are in people's reviews, you will sometimes, you might not even realize it, but you've seen Google My Business listings where it's bolded and pulled in the keywords that you're searching for, because they're in people's reviews. And so it says, oh, this brand does this and it does it well, so I'm going to show it. So do think about if you can encourage those reviews. The more reviews, the better. And with the keywords, or general business kind of keywords in them. One thing I will say, just to make sure that what I'm giving you is completely up to date, is that Google is moving away from, as I'm giving you all this, from Google My Business as we know it, and it's moving it towards something called Google Business Profile. It's about managing it directly from Google Search and Google Maps. The truth is it's very early, and it's going to be rolled out more broadly in 2022. So exactly what that looks like is still very much a bit up in the air. So all I would say is bring your Google My Business profile as up to speed as much as you can, because then you'll be able to translate that in a slightly different way perhaps. But again, we'll know more about that in over kind of the next year. But the actual Google My Business platform and back end might just look very different, and you might just be doing it more kind of front end, as it were. So you might find the changes not overly dramatic for the end user. So finally, because this is your sort of long-term play, really, so a lot of what I've talked about are the things that you might go away and look at as kind of quicker wins. But then over time, do think a little bit about those links and citations. Links are votes. That's how you need to think of it as. Now, don't just think about if other websites are linking to me because it's going to bring me more traffic, like people are going to be clicking on a link to you from another website and coming to you. Think of it more as the signals that it's giving to Google to go, hang on a minute, this website, they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They're authoritative. People are referencing them. So that's how you need to think about links. Check out this tool, Moz. You can have a look at what links you have and also what links your competitor has. And you can get something like 10 free searches a month. So again, this is a great tool to access for free. Pop your website in there and it'll tell you, as I say, who's linking to you. So where those links are kind of coming from. You literally pop it in there. You put a URL in and you get free link data. I recommend you remove any of the precursors like HTTPS or www just to get accurate data. Pop in your website, so joeblogs.com, or just put the HTTPS and you know, if you've got a security certificate, but you'll get that free link data from there, and you can see then, as I say, who's ranking for you. Sorry, who's linking back to you. I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but it'll also give you what's called a domain authority score. That tells you how authoritative your website is ranked out of 100. Obviously, you want it to be as high as possible. Something like, I don't know, Nike is probably 95. Something like a WordPress website that was just set up yesterday is going to be 7. But you want to, over time, be able to build that domain authority. And part of how Moz ranks, decides that domain authority is based upon backlinks. So how do you attract links? Well, you can actually do it through quality content. So you write those quality blogs. I mentioned that example earlier about an article on kind of anxiety and sports performance. That quality content will rank. It ranks in position 1 or 2, and it ranks internationally for kind of things like anxiety in sports, which is amazing. So then in turn, it's going to attract links. Okay. So that's not even through going out and actively trying to get links. That is through building quality, authoritative content. There was one other thing I wanted to say on that, and I don't want to forget it. Yeah, that's the other thing. It helps if those links are coming from authoritative websites. So, for example, if you have a story featured in the Times, amazing. If you've got a backlink off that, even better, because obviously something like the Times is going to be a very high authority website that's linking back to you. However, locally, there's a huge amount of value in local links, churches, community groups, local schools. Schools are .gov websites or whatever. If you can get a guest blog in a local community website, so you write for a local church or a local community group or a hub or a community center or another local business, and they allow you to backlink back to you, that can be great from a local SEO perspective for link building. So those ideas are, to run an event, to get that PR. If you've got a news story, if you've just launched or you've just opened or you've done a charity run, let's say you've got a charity partner for the year and you're raising money on their behalf and you're going to run a half marathon, send that out to the local press. If your local newspaper runs a story on it, you can get the link back to your website, and that's great. I mentioned kind of guest blogging. Sponsorship is a very effective way to get good links. I often recommend to local SEO clients to sponsor a local organization. You can sponsor a kids football team and it might cost you 200 quid, but maybe you get social media exposure, maybe you get your logo on their sleeve, and maybe you get a link, on their website as a preferred partner or something. And then you can also go there and get all that lovely local content where you get photographed in front of the stadium gates or with the kids and all that sort of stuff. So sponsorship is very, very good from a local SEO perspective. High quality content, that is key. because that can just get you those natural kind of links. And I sort of mentioned, you know, authoritative organizations. Just target those opportunities where you can, if you believe that an organization to link back to you can be highly authoritative. But again, this is not going to happen overnight. This is not the be all and end all, but this should be your kind of your long-term play to support your local SEO activity. And there we have it. So that in an hour is how a sort of a 5-step approach to your local SEO. I'm conscious there's probably quite a lot in there, but hopefully a number of different little things to go away and think about, and hopefully leave you feeling more excited and empowered than I don't know, intimidated or looking for the answers. So hopefully they'll give you that good platform to kick forward. But does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask now? Either unmute or pop it in the chat, or chat me privately. Feel free to fire away if you did have any questions.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah, I do that podcast over there, and it is local, but it's also international.
Yeah.
So I was very conscious of what you're saying about the balance, and when you were on that at the beginning, how you strike the balance, because that's something I do struggle with. Is that because we're talking about subjects that are international, but I make it very local to like Germany or Japan or to the States or whatever. And so I just find that, well, you know, I really appreciated what you're saying here. That's why I wanted to, you know, tune in today to see about that balance. But I think it's probably just a general discussion, just more of a comment that maybe I should take up with you later on and find out more. But this was very helpful.
Oh, good. No, I think so. It's an interesting dilemma, right? In that that balance, because there are a number of organizations. Obviously, yours is a podcast, so it can be engaged with online.
Yeah.
But there are a number of companies. Think about groups. For example, we work with a care home group. We also work with a nursery group. So the two ends of the age scale. Being a group, they have locations across. I mean, you know, the home counties, middle of England, west of England, Gloucestershire, Hertfordshire, south of London. The challenge is that is a national presence, but it wants to reach people in those individual localities. Mm-hmm. So really the approach there is to make sure that those different landing pages are targeting. So you might decide to have, so in that example, you know, each nursery page might be optimized for, you know, nursery in Dulwich, nursery in Cheltenham, nursery in, and each, you know, transactional landing page is going to be focused on that. In those examples, sometimes each location might have more pages that are specific to that location, but then you might have a blog that's more informational, broader speaking, you know, answers the problems of everybody, not just people within that locality. So there's a number of different ways to look at that. And again, like I mentioned, it's actually not, there's no right or wrong, but it will be perhaps about you identifying how to optimize. So if your podcasts are to be listened by anybody, those landing pages might be not locally optimized, but you might do more content and blog content and things to target those localities and link through to them. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or, you know, you just get a lot of language on that landing page about the local content, you know, so get those keywords of the town or where the people are from, or, you know, the guests and that sort of thing, but then make sure that the actual page title and the podcast content is not like local SEO. It's more, do you see what I mean?
I think it's more the latter.
It's a tricky one.
It is just as you described there. That's what it is. It's so we'll talk about, say, for instance, like gun control, and we want to know, you know, we get a representative from the UK and certainly the States or Japan, and we just talk about it. Yeah. And so it has a local element, but the whole thing is about comparing across borders. Sure. So it's really that, as you said at the very beginning, that balance of thinking, oh, how do I do this? You know.
But what I think would be very effective for you as well would be to look then at getting some of the content that's within the podcasts into blog articles. So doing the keyword research, I mentioned that tool, Answer the Public, understanding what people are searching for those, which aligns with the content in the podcast. And then you can write a blog about that, but then from that link through to the podcast. So in that example, the content is actually the primary focus. And then it's like, want to hear more about this? Check out our latest podcast that covers XYZ. And then you're also going to be giving yourself opportunity to be visible through that, because ultimately the goal is to drive more people to the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So you're not always going to do that on that transaction, that podcast page, or where they can get it through Apple or whatever. You might be finding ways to do it for people that are looking for information, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I see. Kind of,
exactly that.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. That's fantastic.
No, absolute pleasure. Any more? A couple have come through from the chat. No, great pleasure, Leah. Absolutely. Oh, fantastic, Nisha. I'm glad you found that beneficial as well. If anybody has any final questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Sorry, Dan, did you say that this stack will be available?
Yes. So what we'll do, I'll make sure that we get the deck and everything sent across. You'll also be able to get access to the recording. So you'll have all of that afterwards, because there's loads of links in there to the tools as well. So my colleague Rebecca will be emailing that across. If you then do have any questions, let me know. We also have a webinar, I believe a free webinar for everybody in the new year in January. You'll get all the information for that. That's going to be about HubSpot and sales and marketing alignment, because we've had a huge amount of interest in terms of that side of things, and we're going to be doing a bit of a session and an intro surrounding that. So if anybody's interested in HubSpot and that as a sort of a CRM system, it's to do with email marketing and sales funnels and so on and so forth. So if anybody has interest in that, you'll be able to get all the info on that.
We're happy to publicize that as well.
Oh, fab. Yes, Daniel. And I think Rebecca's going to give you all the info from that forward, so we'll get all of that too.
Yeah.
Fab. Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure. So thank you ever so much for joining. As I say, if anybody does have any questions, don't hesitate to drop me a line. I wish you all the very best from a local SEO perspective. And indeed, if I don't speak before, have a fantastic Christmas and New Year as well. And I hope the weather improves for some of us. Although cold Christmas is a good thing, right? It's just maybe not as wet.
Dan, I just one thing is just before you go, I know you want to end, but maybe it's for another time. It's just the budgeting, local versus SEO versus paid, and what you should consider, and like a break-off point, what is be the most effective kind of budget that you would think you would tend to put more emphasis local versus versus paid or national or something like that. But that's another topic.
Yeah. The thing is, yes, and you're right, but it's about, so ideally the aim is to dominate your locality through organic means and then spend elsewhere. So that budget wise, you might look to then run those campaigns in other areas, or areas that you really want to tap into but that aren't necessarily engaging with your content. Do you have Google Analytics set up for your website?
Yeah.
Because what can be really effective is to take a little look at just have a look at where people are visiting from. So you can look at the region, and also you can look at it like town, region, country. And if you get a feel that you're actually naturally getting from a certain area, then you can focus in elsewhere. But again, it is a tricky one, because ironically, although you're talking about regional themes, it's a national and international product in my mind, if you see what I mean. So actually, you're not, some of that stuff surrounding like locations and addresses, you're not going to get that value because it's not seen as a local business in that way, in terms of if you were a local, or I don't know, or if you actually, an example, if you're a local radio station, just to put it on the audio thing, if you're a local radio station, you're going to have all those signals about where your radio station is based, all that sort of stuff that is community, that means that it's going to rank better for people looking for local radio in, I don't know, Cheltenham rather than in Glasgow. But the challenge, I suppose, is that you're talking on a local and regional level, but not necessarily in the locality sometimes that you are based, if you see what I mean, to get that listenership.
Well, it's a challenge. That's why I wanted to tune in and find out.
Yeah, but drop me a line though. I'll drop you an email after this anyway. But yeah, you know, drop me a line, and if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to just chat informally. So it's not a problem.
All right. Okay, Dan. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you. All the very best. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye, Dan.
Bye.